So I'd like to welcome you to the first after lunch session for our April 16th Promising Practices Share. We have a treat for you today. We have Elise Ross and Kirsten Large from Tri-Rivers Career Center who are going to be sharing about how they are empowering their students, their families, their partners, and internally amongst themselves through the use of the graduation Navigator tool that they have designed. Just overall, a reminder that you can get all of the resources from this session and all the other sessions on our active Google site. And there are going to be recordings of the sessions from this morning, from this afternoon, and from the other earlier dates. So we welcome you to visit that site as much as you like. So first of all, I forgot to say hi. I'm Julie Frankel from State Support Team Region 7. Our office is located in Mansfield, Ohio, but we serve 7 counties in north central Ohio, one of the 16 state support teams. And today I would like to introduce our presenters. First, Elise Ross. Elise is currently the Director of Special Education and Pupil Services for Tri-Rivers Career Center. This is her 4th year in that position. Previously, she was a Pupil Services Supervisor for Olentangy Local Schools for 3 years. And before that, she was an Intervention Specialist at Olentangy for 7 years. She's very excited to celebrate 14 years of marriage this June with her husband, Jared, and she is the proud parent of 3 children, Kate, who's 11, Libby, who's 8, and Patrick, who is 6. Now I'd like to also introduce Kirsten Large. Kirsten is currently serving in her 6th year as counselor for Tri-Rivers Career Center. Before that, she served 5 years at Clear Fork Middle School after 12 years as the health and PE teacher at the high school there. She has 2 children, ages 13 and 16, who keep her busy with volleyball, soccer, and a variety of other teenage activities. So I will be putting the link to their presentation in the chat, but right now I'm going to stop sharing and let Elise start driving. Elise?
Well, thank you all for attending today. This is something that we've been working on for many years. So to say it's perfect, we know it is not. I am one of the administrators here at Tri-Rivers. Kirsten, obviously, as you just were introduced by Julie, is one of our school counselors. So she's actually using the system a lot more often than I am. So we'll just kind of piggyback back and forth off of each other. If you have questions, feel free to unmute or put them in the chat. We'd be happy to answer those as we go along. So the first thing that we talked about is, we used to have a system here at Tri-Rivers and it was called TCARS, and it was run through a pretty antiquated old program. And it was really just an internal thing for our student services department. So our 3 school counselors had access to that. They would put information in. It housed great information, but it really just was for them personally, was not shared out with teachers, families, or anything like that. So that was one of the reasons why we said we really need something that is more overarching, that can really impact more of our stakeholders. Another reason why we felt the need to develop a graduation kind of hub of information is the complexity of graduation requirements. So I'm sure all of you know, it seems like the graduation requirements change, every 2 or 3 years. Also because they're kind of complicated and convoluted for parents to understand, and also for our students to understand. So we really wanted to find a tool that we could empower our kids to really understand and know where they were sitting at in terms of their graduation requirements. Additionally, with that, we want to look at, from an administration side, evaluating the CT effectiveness. So I can say, there's a couple programs that we have here based on this. We're able to look at web exams. We're able to look at their industry recognized credentials, run reports out of the system to really figure out, where are our holes? Because when associate schools are sending their kids to us, the expectation is that we're preparing them to be career ready. And that typically means getting a 12-point credential and passing web exams. So that is really a big focus for us. Also some work-based learning, which is incorporated as well. So it does work, it does allow us for some macro and micro analysis of the effectiveness of our programs. So who has access to this currently? All of our teachers and staff have access. Our teachers only have access to the students that are assigned to them. So we have to put in their schedules. That way they don't have a whole school view. Their only, educational interest is important. All of our teachers do, our staff does, all of our students have access. We've gone into multiple labs and been able to get them into the system, kind of gone through the system with them. And we'll get to that a little bit later. Our associate school members also have access. So our school counselors from our associate schools and our principals. Some of our associate school counselors also have been able to get in the system and add information that maybe we didn't know about. So as you know, working at a career center, we don't have the historical data that our home schools do. So even Power School encapsulates some of this information for us, but it really only encapsulates what they have when they're with us. So for example, some of our students come in with a 12-point industry credential. Our associate school counselors are able to enter that information into the system. And that's really helpful for us to know that they already have met that requirement. Same thing with principals, and we'll get into kind of the dashboard here and what they kind of see when they log in. That will help kind of with that conversation. Also, our central office personnel, so our superintendent and our treasurer, obviously anything that involves money, which is our industry credentials, we want to make sure that when we're, getting kids credentialed, that it's an effective credential and it's something industry needs. So that's one of the, macro level things that we're looking at in terms of the dashboard. So this is the associate school view. This is actually taken a snapshot from the data of one of our associate schools. Obviously that is hidden for you, but it covers each section of the graduation requirements. So the first one that we highlight there is competency. Each one of these numbers under total students you can click on and the list of students will come up. So if they're not on track for competency, that means they have not reached that 684 score on ELA 2 or Algebra 1. So they haven't met that on either one of those measures. If they're in progress, that means they've met one out of those two 684 scores. And if they're on track, it means they've met both of that 684 score. In terms of seals, the not on track is obviously they don't have both, and on track is they have both. So we didn't differentiate between 0, 1, or 2. We just said they either have them or they don't. Credit deficiencies, this would just be if they do have a credit deficiency at all. So a lot of our students come to us and they play sports and they haven't turned in their PE waiver. Well, until that waiver is turned in and put on their transcript, we're still counting that as a deficiency. So they always know exactly where they stand. And then in terms of options, those are the graduation pathway options. So option 1 would be that traditional pathway of a 684 score on ELA 2, Algebra 1, and the 2 seals. Option 2 is that career focused pathway, which is kind of like our bread and butter. Option 3 is the military enlistment, and option 4 would be college credit plus. So this is where the counselors have evaluated each one of their transcripts and really determined by clicking a button in the system what pathway we think they're going to reach for graduation. Anything to add on for this?
No, I mean, I guess when they all come to us, they're all the original pathway for the most part, with the English and the math and competency. And then as we go through, we mark different things, obviously. And when they come to us with a seal, like some of the seals, we don't need the homeschool to go in and put in. If they have the fine arts seal on their transcript, I just go in and add that. The how it means job seal, we of course wait for the homeschool to approve it, but once they do, we can add that. So the 3 local seals plus the OMJ seals are ones that we can go in and add those.
So this is what the associate school members, when they log in, this is their view. We have the option to click on a button in our system that we can see this view, because sometimes this view is very helpful for us as well. But this is kind of their login view. The next view to kind of cover is the student view. I'm going to move our faces here a little bit so we can see everything. So this is their grad pathway page. So once they click the grad pathway button, this is where most of our students access the system and where they're evaluating. This is an actual student's page. I got permission from the parent to share this page, even though there's no student data on there. But if you look in that top right-hand corner, the science seal, the citizenship seal, and the career ready, or sorry, college ready seal have all been earned by the student. Those are kind of like the badges that are right up there as soon as they log in, so they can see exactly what seals that they have earned. In terms of each one of the drop-down menus, which you'll see here with these arrows, the credit accrual summary sheet is more for the counselor side of things. So I'll have Kirsten talk about their process with that and kind of how that's evolved.
Really, it's just evaluating a transcript. So if there's any counselors on here, you know what I mean. But we just go through and we have an English section, a math section, and we go through and mark those in. We've tried to kind of get a general idea between our 9 schools, what maths are called and different things, but we do have some called other math, because you have some of those outliers that have an integrated algebra too, not integrated, I'm sorry, intermediate algebra. So it's like an algebra in between algebra and algebra 2. So you have those outliers like that. And also we just have an area for CCP, and we just mark those with a lot of our, I shouldn't say, I keep talking, college level courses, because we also have an early college program, which if you do not know, that does not considered CCP. And then we just go through and mark those off. We mark if they have deficiencies. So on the next line, you'll see the first number is what their school requires for graduation. The red is where the student, trying to remember, is the red the deficiencies?
The red is deficiencies, and then the blue second blue is how much they earned. Yeah.
Sorry, we've really just started getting into this year, so I'm still trying to remember everything. When I look at it, I obviously know what it is.
Yeah, and I picked one that, you know, doesn't have those numbers, so I apologize for that. And then, so the credit accrual page is where most of our students kind of land and look. That just basically gives a summary of math. This is how many credits I have. Here's my deficiencies. And that's kind of, it's a graph. So we actually have had a student who has reported to us, hey, by the way, I'm actually going to flip ahead a little bit, because that is what this page looks like. You know, we had a student who had a biology credit listed as a deficiency. And there you can see those numbers. So 20 credits is required for graduation. They've earned 17.5 and they're deficient 1. So that is where they kind of see. We had a student, well, as I was going through this, say, wait a minute, I don't have a deficiency in science. We were able to work with the associate school, figure out that their deficiency was just never, once they made it up, never made it on their transcript. So that really saved that student, you know, a lot of time and energy, because it was a whole credit deficiency. So that's exactly why we want this system, not only for us internally, but for our students to really grab hold of their graduation requirements, be the driver of that without reliance on their school counselor or an administrator to really tell them where they are. So that was one of our success stories there. Just to go back, obviously their Ohio State's test scores are listed in there. There is a way to capture those from ODEX in order for us to pull that information directly in. So again, the more we can do this with just pulling in files, as opposed to our old system where we human typed in everything, it's a time saver. It allows them to do their jobs more effectively and really provide the counseling services that our students need. So a lot of uploading happens in here. So that is something that I think is a really positive of the system. The other thing that we have in this section is their industry credentials. So every single one of their credentials, in order to count, has to come, like, we have to have the physical credential to count it in this system. This system produces a report, which we then give to our EMIS coordinator. So if they don't have the official, you know, credential, it's not in there. The great thing about this system too is they can log into the system well after they graduate. So we had a student call their career tech instructors, because the career tech instructors used to keep folders of all the credentials. So he called and said, hey, I really need my, you know, OSHA credential. And so he said, we'll log into the dashboard and you should be able to get it. And sure enough, he could log in and he pulled it off and provided that to his employer. So this is a valuable tool, not only for our current students, but after they graduate. The what's your E is something that we haven't dived into too much. That's an internal term. We say what's your E, whether you're enrolled into a post-secondary program, enlisted in the military, or going into employment. So we're going to start, trying to dive into that probably more next year, just to encapsulate that information, which will also help with our post-program placement. Career Tech Honors Diploma, that's all hand checking right now. And then previously obtained credentials, that's a section that's used if the associate school, if they come with a credential, or maybe they switch programs that now they don't count in that same pathway, so that then won't count towards that seal. And there's a way to mark that. Julie, are you monitoring the questions? Okay. Are we good to keep going? Okay. All right. The other part of the student view is this bottom section, as Kirsten was talking about, which correlates directly to what the associate school users see on that main page. So you can see that this main pathway, that's what we call it, it's kind of like that golden color. That's a quick indication to our students, our parents, and the teachers what pathway we think that they're going to use to reach their high school diploma. So this particular student is getting the main pathway, which we consider option 1. So the credit requirement is specific to each district. So we have 9 associate schools. So obviously the credit requirement is different for each school. So if I logged in as an Elgin student, my credit requirement may be very different than my login for Ridgedale, for example. In terms of the competency, this information, as the 684, directly talks to this Ohio State's tab. So once they hit that 684 mark, this will automatically check itself. We don't go in and hand check that to say, yep, they've met those requirements. The next section, I keep hitting the mouse there. The next section underneath there are all the seals. So the state defined seals are on the left-hand side. The right is the locally defined seals. So this is where the student services of our associate schools will add that information in. So we, again, don't manage the locally defined seals because we don't honor any of those or provide those. Those all come from our home schools. So our associate school members do go in and add those in. And then just like the competency in terms of like the proficient score on biology, if that score is obtained through the Ohio State's test, that will then populate here, and it automatically makes that picture populate here on their main page when they log in. So everything is kind of connected. That's intentionally, again, and trying to make things much more automatic so that our counselors aren't not spending hours upon hours doing data entry. We already went over that. Oh, also with the student engagement here, there is an edit button there. So whenever a student completes a credit recovery course, their certificate is uploaded into the system. So that way our associate school counselors can also go on and see, yes, they passed that class, that credential is there, and put that credit in. They, of course, still communicate that as well, just to double check, make sure everybody's getting the credits that they earned. But that is something that we did. This financial literacy piece is new. We just added this in for next year, since that has to be a standalone half credit. And about half of our schools, our students will already come with that. The other half will need it. So we'll be providing that next year. Here's an example of the industry recognized credential page. So obviously, for EMIS purposes, we have to report pass and fails. So there is a part when you see pass, fail, there is a part for fails, so that we have a history of that. So this particular student has 8 points worth of credentials, and this little arrow here with the line underneath is that download function. So this student can log in, download their credential, provide it to their employer, or have it, whenever they need it at a moment's notice. The next thing that we want to talk about is our reports. So the first report that we'll discuss is industry recognized credentials. So this, a lot of the times, goes to our counseling department here just as a communication tool for them. And I'll have Kirsten talk about that. One of the other things that we can really look at in terms of the industry recognized credential is by that program success rate. So that pass failure, how many people are trying, attempting, and not passing? Okay, maybe that's a curriculum issue that we need to look at, or maybe we need to figure out what other credential might be more effective for that student that is more responsive to industry needs. And then on the student services side,
so the industrial recognized credentials, a lot of times I do like to keep an external spreadsheet. It just kind of helps me. So I have everything in one place, so I can print off this industrial recognized credentials and update my spreadsheet with that without having to go through each individual student. Also, a lot of times we'll print this off and give it to our homeschool counselors, because once again, they just want to quickly look through and see who's doing what. And it's kind of cool to hear the counselors say, oh, they've got 12 points. They're, excited about that. Because of the way ODEX is, they can only run reports in ODEX or download ODEX after February. So a lot of times we have our students earning these 12-point industrial recognized credentials before then. And yes, we can tell them, but they always feel much better to see it on paper and, that they have earned it.
Absolutely. It is exciting to kind of see it. So the report basically gives the student name, their lab, their grade level, and then the credentials, and then how many points they've earned total. So they can kind of see it's broken down individually and also total wise. So it is exciting for our counselors to be able to have that information more quickly than when they can pull from ODEX as well. The previously earned credential report is the exact same as industry recognized credentials, just pulling what they maybe got from a previous lab or from their home school. The student detail report is something that we'll use more often next year. So we can run reports by which students are in the labs. You can pretty much any demographic information you can figure out. So if I need to pull all 11th grade juniors from Marion Harding, I can put those boxes in and it'll pull the report for me. The work keys assessment is something that we kind of have started to be more prescriptive about here. The last couple of years we tested all juniors, then we went to juniors that didn't have a pathway. This year we were focused more on seniors that didn't have a pathway if they needed to do that. When that score went to 14, we didn't find a lot of success in terms of our students meeting that mark. So we wanted to kind of focus our attention on the industry recognized credential and the web exams for that instead. The Ohio State's test report, again, very similar to what you would expect. You'll be able to pull off to be able to see, how many times have they attempted, what was their score each time. This is something that we often use these reports in our IEP meetings. And our 504 meetings to discuss kind of what they still need to take, where we are currently at. So that is something that's been valuable for that process as well. We have alternate assessment reports and also web exam reports. I will say that I just did my first upload yesterday of web exam scores. Yay! That went in without me relying on the dashboard developers to do that. So they, we're constantly working on things, and, they gave me a template and I uploaded it yesterday. It literally took me maybe 2 minutes to upload over 1,200 lines on a sheet. And it's in there, spot checked, it's working. So it's very exciting to be able to quickly have the most up-to-date information in the system that's right at the students' fingertips, right at our teachers' fingertips, and our fingertips to make sure that we're doing everything in the best interest of our students. So some of the things that I noted as some value added for having a graduation tracking system is just that increased collaboration with our associate schools and their users. So like I said earlier, our previous system was very static. It was just our system. It was not web-based. It was an application. So it was really just our internal. And I think it's fair to say each counselor kind of put things in different places based on, their preference, which is totally fine. But that made it hard when they were having to go out to different labs and talk to them about where they were at for industry credentials or where they're at for graduation requirements, because it would be kind of in different sections. Now everything is a little bit more uniform. The increased awareness of graduation status for students without reliance on us, as I mentioned earlier as well. They don't have to go to their make an appointment with their counselor to say, where am I at? Where does this need to be? Now, are we still having to train our students and go over the graduation requirements? Of course. We're also working on kind of like a quick snapshot sheet for them. That's kind of the next to-do task out of our dashboard, to say, this is exactly where you at, or in terms of each section. We thought that would be really valuable when they're meeting with students, because our counselors meet with every single one of our students a couple times a year. And so they can print that out and just send that home with the parent, with the students, for the parent to view as well. It's also a centralized system used to analyze progress for decision-making from a leadership perspective. So we, for example, have one particular program that we really struggle to get a 12-point credential out of. So we looked at that, and now we've introduced a brand new credential this year. We partnered with another career center to kind of figure out the best way to implement that new curriculum and credential, and that is getting off the ground just now. So really, we don't have any data yet to determine effectiveness of that, but we're hopeful that that will be a positive step for that lab. That way we feel more confident to tell parents and students that they will get a 12-point credential from us. The other information that I didn't really touch on how it is utilized is our work-based learning and how that's monitored. So we have obviously a lot of labs that do internal work-based learning projects. So, if I could turn my camera out the window, we have an adult ed building right across the street that our construction students have built an addition onto, which is awesome. We have a church down the street that they've done a pavilion at. So all of those hours are work-based learning hours. It's for community projects. So basically what they do is they submit timesheets to be approved by an administrator to say that they've had so many hours. So the instructor can see that, sign off on that, and then one of our people on our leadership team sign off on that. We looked at some other systems to keep track of work-based learning, and it just had the students upload and kind of on the honor system. We wanted that checks and balance. So I was, able to do that just a couple weeks ago. You go on, click the student, it's broken up by district. You click on it, you click their timesheet, and you either approve or reject. And I did have to reject a couple of them because their hours and what their timesheet said mismatched. So obviously that is a problem. Not as much of a problem when they say they worked more than what they actually put in, but we want to make sure that it is accurate. So the student also can log in. They can see exactly, oh, it got rejected because my hours did not match. I can go in and correct that. And then I can go back in and then approve that. So that's been something that we actually have to do corrective action on here. That was one of our indicators we did not meet. So hopefully this system will help with that, reporting process as well. The other thing is just that access to essential documents even after graduation. So our students don't graduate from us, but we do have a senior recognition ceremony. We do give them a portfolio that has a copy of their credentials, it has their resume, has any other awards that they maybe received here, and they take that and they leave, but that's a paper copy. And so we know that when our students leave here, sometimes they still need those things, or they need another copy of those things. For their resume, we're going to have an upload where they can just upload their resume, so that way they can always access it and change it and edit it. So these are things that we think are not only impactful for our students who are currently attending, but once they go on and graduate from their home schools, they still are able to access this information to help them with their future plans. And I talk really fast, so it's really 101 done. Kirsten, is there anything that maybe you want to discuss in terms of I didn't cover, or?
I think pretty much everything was covered. When I show the students this, and I know that Mrs. Ross has gone out and she's done the big, twos in the lab, but sometimes when I talk to the kids individually, they really like the fact, especially that they can get their certificates, their industrial credentials, that's there, that they can print those off. They like seeing that. I think they also like seeing their state scores, because a lot of times those are mailed home and then they disappear. I probably can't tell you where my kids are that have gotten to the house. So just different things like that. The only issue I have found so far is that kids want to look right away and see their credits right away. And I keep reminding them that I have to hand enter those. So, after the semester, give me about a month and they should be up to date. And then if they have any questions, of course, come see me. Mrs. Ross was going out and talking to the kids, and I hadn't quite got caught up, and they were like all upset because I thought they only had 5 credits. And I'm like, no, you're okay. But I really do think there's spreadsheets she talked about where we can have everything on one piece of paper and send it home with them will be very helpful. Because as you guys know, graduation is very confusing. It's not just pass your classes and graduate, or pass your classes and then pass these state proficiencies. There's so many different options. I always tell the kids it's a 67-page document that tells me how they graduate. So,
So, oh, go ahead. So
What
Elise in the chat.
No, you go ahead. Go, Julie, go.
So in the chat, Jody had asked earlier, is this something that you developed completely in-house, or did you have an external like support or company that helped you? I know you started in-house, but so you want to tell that story for a couple minutes?
Sure. So we actually had somebody that I don't know if it was through Meta or our initial TCAR system, or he just developed it for us on the side. I'm not 100% sure that was a system in place before I got here, but we realized that the need for this. So we started talking to different like dashboard type companies. And you can see on this questions page, Mike Testa at Newbridge is who we decided to partner with. So they do all the designing of everything. I basically, Kirsten and I, we sit in meetings and we'll say, this is how this is functioning. We need this to change. What I will say is the development side of things, they are very responsive to our needs. So for example, when Kirsten's putting in all of those, credits, she was like, these lists are way too long, like, because they'd have to scroll through all the English, all the math. It was all on one page. So then we changed it. We made English a drop down menu, and then you picked it. So they really do change things based on we need. Some changes do take longer than others, but they have been a wonderful partner, and they are able to customize this. So if this is a system that you feel like would be beneficial for you, I highly encourage you to, contact me. I can make that connection, or just contact Mike directly. You can copy me. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have on an individual level. But if you like components of this, it's already kind of built. You can take those components and then customize it to what you need. So that's it. We did definitely use an outside developer because, this was way beyond my scope of technology skills.
And so I just want to do a little disclaimer here, right? Because at the SSTs, right, our services are free, and so we don't ever charge anything, but we do know that right out in the districts and out in the fields, people are finding some great successes with some things that they have decided to purchase on their own. So thank you for sharing that with us. Jody, did you get what you needed for your question?
Absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate it, ladies.
Yeah, absolutely.
How about anybody else? Any other questions out there? This would be a great time for them.
And if at any point you want to see an example of a report, obviously I would, get rid of any student specific information. If you want to see a snapshot of something, let us know. I think in education, it's always best to share what you're doing, because even if it's not this specific thing, it might spawn an idea for something else. So we just have found, I particularly am able to I used to have to go over to their office all the time. Where's the student at with this? Where's the student at with that? So it's definitely helpful. There is definitely still some hand components, as Mrs. Large was talking about, in terms of, having to put in their credits and things like that. So again, we're constantly looking at ways to make things more efficient. But really it's been an invaluable tool for mainly our students.
And one thing that when Elise said that really made me think of it, because being a career center, our homeschools have allowed us as counselors access to their power schools, but they don't want every teacher, every person in the system. So especially when it comes to IEP meetings or things like that, the ISs were always having to reach out to us for information, what they needed. And so now with it being in this system, they're able to log in and see it for themselves. So it's one step that was taken away from me, which is fine by me. You know, and then they always double check with me to make sure, you know, where the student is, but I'm not having to go in and copy down test scores and how many attempts and different things like that, that they're able
Oh,
to see.
yeah, I can definitely see how that would be helpful for historical data, like the profile information and stuff
Absolutely.
like that. So, yeah, I didn't think about that. I know that I've seen a lot of systems and a lot of schools have developed some Google sites and some pieces, but I just really was appreciative of the multiple layers and levels of access that you guys have created with your stakeholders. And the fact that kiddos can go in there years after and get what they need, I just think that that was definitely worth sharing, and I appreciate that you were willing to do so. All right, so if you have any more questions, you can put them in the chat or you can unmute. In the meantime, just a reminder that you can go to the Google site to share or re-watch this session as well as any other sessions. There were 4 others that you didn't get to attend while we were talking here today. So this is the site that's going to be your one-stop shop. If you have anything specific that you think I might be able to help you with, please feel free to reach out. And so we thank you very much for attending this afternoon. If you fill out your feedback form, there's the opportunity. And if you would like a certificate for attending the session, here's your opportunity. Feel free to hold up your phone and grab these, and you can do that because you have the link as well. It is 1:08 in the afternoon by my clock. So we thank you for coming. The next session starts at 1:30. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much to Elise and Kirsten. We very much appreciate your time, and I know that a lot of people are going to watch the recording. So thank you.
Great. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.